then boom, the monitor went on. Then it went, I flatlined,
Wow.
and then they started moving real quick. They started moving real quick. They said a couple of things, and then as they were moving, then boom, then I left. And then I look around, and then I felt this presence up in the sky. Now it wasn't a person, but the presence was so big that like you could just look to your left and right if you're in the sky, and that's how big it was.
From 0 to 100, 0% to 100%, right? How convinced are you that what you experienced was real and that there is an afterlife?
100.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today we have Xavier Roman with us. He's had a near-death experience. We're going to have a deep conversation around his experience, his life story. So, first of all, thank you so much, Xavier, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
We just got a brief moment to talk before the show, as usual. But as I was saying, it is always nice to have a male perspective on these things because we don't get as many male guests on the show yet. Maybe that'll change for any males out there that have had NDEs or spiritual experiences or anything that want to contact us. But I always go back to the beginning. So I don't know when your experience happened. We'll find that out in a moment. But I still, either way, always go back to childhood to start. It's just kind of where I start. And I try to see what kind of kid you were, like who little Xavier was, like maybe the influences you had in your life could be religious, could be things like that. But I just want to get a little detailed information about what kind of kid you were in general, even your personality.
Yeah, as a kid, I always dove into sports and so forth, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, as seasons changed. So I did that as far as back as I can remember, being like, I don't know, coming out of kindergarten,
Mm.
and on and so forth. Um, I was just always out. I was just one of those kids who was always out. I mean, which is, I know it's different from nowadays. All the kids are in playing video games and so forth. But yeah, you couldn't get me out. You couldn't get me back in unless a good show was coming on. Like maybe the Hulk was coming on,
Mm.
or the some kind of superhero, Dukes of Hazzard or something like that. Okay, we gotta go in. It's coming on. And to eat, and that was pretty much about it. I was always out and about.
So you're the typical kind I was the same way. I was always climbing trees and stuff and getting outside. I sometimes I like coming in to watch like a good like movie or something, but then I'd be
Yeah,
ready to go back outside. So
yeah.
so what about religious point of view? Did you grow up in any kind of
Uh,
religion or any kind of
yeah,
spiritual beliefs?
yeah. I grew up as a Catholic, ever since I can remember. Um, I went to Catholic school for like about 4 years, my first 4 years, kindergarten to third grade. And then, yeah, I came out and I went to public school, and then, but I still attended mass. And yeah, that was it.
Okay. Did it I always I go down this road a little bit. Did you have strong feelings around God and religion because of that, or was it
Uh,
just something you did from your culture or family
yeah, it
dynamic?
was just something that I did because of culture, family. I can remember, even if I look back now, as a little kid, I always questioned it. I mean, no matter what they told me, whether it be the priest or the nuns, because we had nuns back back at that time still. And there were some things that I would look and just shake my head like, no, that's not right. Like, I wouldn't tell them. I didn't want to get in trouble because they would always get in trouble. But I would just look like, nah, no, that's not right. No, like
Right.
yeah. So there was just like, if I got information given to me from them, then I process it real quick. No, that's not right. Yeah, yeah, no, and yeah, and so forth and so forth. And I can remember kids in school, if they ask me, "Hey, why were you doing this? And why were you shaking your head up and down, no?" And it's yes, but why were you going no? And I was like, "Oh, I just don't think that that's not right." Like, wait, you
Wow.
can't say that. How's that not right? Like, no, I just feel like it. I just feel like it. Like, well, why this? And like, no, I'm not gonna get into it, but I don't feel like, oh man, that's weird. That's strange. You're like that. So forth.
So so even though you were told certain things, you were kind of a I always like to say I'm a little bit of a truth seeker myself. You're always trying to like kind of balance the thoughts in your head of what made sense to you in regards to your religious
Yeah,
upbringing.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And something in my mind would come into my mind, and then I would feel this no, and then I would think about it, picture it, move back to back in the day, and have this own movie in my head, and then be like, no, okay, yeah, that's why that's not
Mm.
right. Okay, so something would bring that to me, and then I would be like, no. Mm-mm. It got so bad at and I probably never said this. As a little kid, some of the kids be like, because of how the Catholicism is structured in Catholic school and so forth. I don't know if you've been as a child, but they'd be like, "Oh, he's the devil!" Like what?
Hmm.
Like what are you talking about? What are you guys talking about? This and that. And, I would get into a fight here and there and so forth. But yeah, I'm like, get out of here, just because I don't agree. Like so that's how that would go. Yeah, that's interesting. You brought that up though. I haven't dove into that, but that's what happened.
Did anything lead up to when the near-death experience happened, or when around in your life did that happen?
Yeah, the NDE didn't happen until around 30.
Okay.
So I don't think, anything led up. Uh, although, when I was in kindergarten, that's when I experienced my first healing. Uh, I don't know if you read that part, but like that's when I experienced my first thing where I seen somebody across the street. There was a lady because I was in kindergarten. There was a lady and her child, and I was kitty corner across them, and I seen them both crying. Midday of the afternoon, and they were crying, and it was kind of scary as a little kid, and I just looked at them, and I was like, man, I wish I could help them. Like, wow, like they're crying, like why that kid looks as old as me, or we almost look the same age, and he's hugging his mom on the street corner, and they're both crying for some reason. And then I closed my eyes because I felt something like you could help them, and I closed my eyes and I put my head down, and then I felt this white light come in my body, and then I wanted that white light for some reason to go to them, and I opened my eyes. As soon as I opened my eyes, it must have took like about 2 seconds. They stopped crying and they both looked, in different directions. He let go of his mom from her waist, and they looked like what was that kind of a look? What's going on? What happened? They just stopped immediately crying when I opened my eyes a couple of seconds after, and I was like, oh, they stopped. Like, oh, did I do that? Like,
Hmm.
was that me? Like, no, that couldn't have been me. Um, and then one of my immediate thoughts is like, wow, if I did that, then maybe I'm a superhero. Wow, I could, man, oh my God, like, wow, when did this fly? Can I fly now? Like, when does that kick in? All these thoughts, of a child, at 5 would think, and so forth.
Right.
And then they stopped, and then I mean, I started walking away real slow, but I'm still, looking at them. And then I'm walking and I'm looking at them, and then they leave the corner, and then I'm looking at my hands and my arms and stuff like that. Like, whoa, whoa, wow, what if that was me? Like, wow, that was, oh man, no, I'm not gonna tell nobody. And from there on, I've never told anybody, especially in childhood. I never told anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it was something that was special to you. And, one interesting thing I do want to say when I talk to a lot of people who've had experiences in childhood, one of the oddest parts is that sometimes, and I'm not saying this happened with you, but sometimes when an experience happens to them, they think that that's just a normal occurrence. So what happens is they will tell people immediately, oh, I had this experience, or this thing happened, and then they'll say, whoa, 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 that's in your head. That's make believe. That's not a real. That didn't happen, and it shuts down that connection, I think, as a child at
Yeah,
times. So because when it happens, especially the people I've talked to who've had NDEs as children, they go, "Oh yeah, I had that near death experience, and probably all my friends have had one too." And because they don't know any better, when you're a kid, you're just learning each stage. So and then you get older and you go, "Oh yes, near death experiences happen, or spiritual experiences like this. That's what this happens. Sounds like." But not probably not as normal as we think. And I think there's more of them happening now, and especially spiritual experiences, because I think there's a lot of changes happening with humans, it seems. But yeah, but that's a really fascinating story.
and I'm kind of and since you said that, I'm kind of glad I didn't tell anybody. I mean,
Mm,
I think maybe should have did it, like in my 20s, but I still didn't. But like, I'm kind of glad because that's true. Like, let's say if a kid says, "Hey, I seen this thing in the basement. Hey, I seen this thing, going against the wall, and all the lights were off, but it was the shadow or this and that. Hey, like I seen this image of this man and this. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, this and
right.
that." And it does go ahead and it will knock them out of uh, believing that's real, or it'll just take them out of it. And then every time it comes up, that was, my mom was right or my dad was right. That's nothing. It's just,
Hmm.
my imagination, and it takes them out. So that never got to happen to me because I never shared it with the soul.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it helped. It helped down the road because I continued on to do that, especially if my mom went to the doctor's office. I'd be like, "Hey, mom, let me go with you." Like, "What? Boy, you're crazy. You want to go to the doctor? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just want to go ahead and sit with you." And, next thing you know, I'm looking for somebody like, let's use somebody who's hurling, who looks sick, who's holding their
Wow.
stomach. Let me see who that is, and then I capture somebody like in that kind of position where they're like, "Oh, I need to get in there and see this doctor," and so forth. And then I would close my eyes and I would do the same thing to them. And then I look up and I give it like a couple seconds. And then, then they stop and they look around like, "Wow, hey, what's going on? Like, I don't feel so sick." Like, wow. And, they'd be touching themselves and it's like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, hey, where's that pain? Where's that pain?" And then once in a while, you'd see people, get up and go to the desk. "Hey, I like to reschedule. I got to go somewhere, this and that." "Yes, it worked. This
Mm,
and that. And then, like, wow, that was so cool. Like, let me get somebody else, and then I couldn't see anybody else. Like, man, I wish somebody would act sick or look like they're in pain or something like that. So I tried to figure out. And then, but as I got older, it's like, oh, those people were just there for maintenance. Those people were just there for. That's why they didn't look sick, and that's why I couldn't try to help them because they were just there. Maybe it's a 12-month checkup. Maybe they just had
right.
to get something or something like that. I said, okay, all right, that makes sense. Yeah.
Wow. So
Mm.
because of that, it kept that, we'll call it a superpower power,
Oh,
but it kept that healing aspect of you in check throughout your adolescence into young adulthood, that you
yeah,
had this feeling like, whatever I'm doing seems to be helping. Um, I can attest to that the same way with I can pick up on people's emotion. So if I feel emotion and I keep getting that push to talk to them or to bring it out,
yeah,
I used to ignore it because I didn't want to be intrusive, but I find ways now to do it. And
yeah,
and I can usually I'll get the feeling, I'll say something. It's either no, everything's fine, but then tears or something starts to happen. So it's more intuitive. Yours seems like something you're actually visually seeing as a healing that
yeah.
you were
With
feeling
my
and
eyes closed.
seeing. Yeah, so
Hmm. Yeah,
that's fascinating. And you were
yeah,
doing that really young. But again, when I was younger, I had some things happen and I mentioned it to friends and they said, "You're that's weird, man." And I
yeah,
was like, "Okay, I'm weird, so I'm not going to do that anymore." So, it's But you can't control that when you're a kid. So good for you for holding that in. It's the
Yeah,
same thing
yeah,
when people have these NDEs, but they wait forever to talk to people. Um,
yeah.
and sometimes it's just a personal thing, but other times it is because they don't know what the reaction is going to be.
Mhm.
So you're doing this healing stuff. You're moving. You said that the NDE happened at 30. Can we lead into how this started to manifest itself?
Yeah, yeah. I can remember back, uh, and it was a little weird when that did happen, because I could remember, um, when my stomach started to hurt. I was like, oh my God, stomach hurts. Okay. Well, everybody's stomach hurts every now and then. And it just kept on hurting. And then I was like, oh, maybe I got to go to the washroom, or maybe I got to do this, this and that. And then I kept thinking, like, wow, you know what? Someone just asked me, hey, what would be your last meal if you died? If you knew you were going to die, what would be your last meal? And at that time, I was like, oh, that's easy, man. Give me some wings and pizza. I'm good, like I'm good, that's all I need. And I was like, oh my God. Last 2 days, I just ate wings and pizza for 2 days straight, 2 days in a row. And I was like, oh
Wow.
my God. And my stuff is getting worse. And I'm like, it was so bad. I was like in a fetal position, like, oh my God, like this is bad. And then at the time, I remember my wife coming home, and, I had called her and told her about it real quick. And then she came, she's like, what's wrong? What's going on? And I was like, oh, like, hey, we got to go to the hospital. You're gonna have to take me. And we're gonna go to the hospital that's downtown instead of any of the ones around here. I said, because I'm not gonna come back home right away. What are you talking about? Blah, blah. I said, look, it's just something I know. I said, let's just go. Let's go to that one because I want um, better care, and that place right there is going to offer better care, especially for staying and so forth. And the food is better, I bet. And so then I ended up going, and it was an appendix. So
Mm.
it was the appendix thing, and so they're like, okay, you got to do this, you got to do this. We're gonna have a do your procedure at this time. Um, so that's what we're gonna do. Okay, okay, cool. Whatever. It just feels so bad. That I don't care. And so then I went ahead, went through the procedure, came out of it, and went home. After then, they gave me some meds, and then it had to been like about a week later, probably about a week later. I remember my body feeling real cold, and it was like about 101, 2 degrees at that time, and I'm like, man, like I am so cold. I'm under the covers and so forth. I mean, yeah, we got the air conditioners on, but like it shouldn't be that cold. And so then I'm getting real hot. I'm like, oh my God, like what's going on? Like now I'm hot and so forth. So then we call up the ER, back to the, where I was stationed at and so forth. And they said, hey, he's probably having an infection. You finished the meds and so forth. And, that should have worked. You're going to have to bring him in right away. And so I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So then we went back and this and that. They ran their quick tests and so forth. And then later on, I remember the doctor coming in and say, hey, listen, you got this infection. This infection's, of course, it started in the lower abdominal area, but it's going upwards towards your heart. Now, if it keeps on going, if we wait, if it keeps on going, once it gets like to that heart area, there's nothing we can do. I'm like, okay, well, like, are you guys gonna, keep on giving me this IV thing? They're like, no, no, you won't make it. Like, what? Like, what? Like, hey man, I thought
Wow.
you guys were just gonna give me something, and or something, and when I get better, like, no, we're gonna have to open you up and so forth and get that out, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have a choice. And she left the room. She said, okay, we're gonna schedule it for this time, in the morning and so forth. I said, all right, oh yeah, whatever. That's I don't have a choice, so let's do it. And so me and my wife at the time, we were looking like, wow, what a turn of events. Like, oh my God, that is crazy. She's like, yeah, like, she's like, I still can't process it. I'm like, well, hey, we're gonna go through the procedure and, we'll come out of it. And, luckily, she says that it's not there yet, but it's getting there. So that's cool. We'll do it. So then we go in, and I can remember them saying, if you've ever had a procedure, they say, okay, 3 seconds, count to three, and you'll be out by then. And so they did the one. I just remember saying one, and then I mean I can still see that room right now, because just all the lights that are over you, and then boom, I was gone. And then I can remember standing outside my body, and I'm just there, and I just got my arms crossed, and I'm looking at them, do the procedure. I so much as seen the one of the doctors get the scalpel and cut my navel, from my navel to my pelvis. He cut it, and then boom, all this the blood and stuff. Luckily, he was wearing the windows. If you ever seen the some of the back at the time COVID protection shields they wear on their face, so that got all over him and all over his thing. I heard him swear and so forth. And pretty soon after that, then boom, the monitor went on, and then it went, I flatlined,
Wow.
and then they started moving real quick. They started moving real quick. They said a couple of things, and then as they were moving, then boom, then I left. And I left. I stopped witnessing them do the operation and so forth. And then yeah, then I was gone. I moved on to the other side.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that so far. I'm interested to see what happens next, but I'm just curious. So you're saying at some point when you were under, you you must have been very close to death. Because you were out of your body. So why I'm saying this is I mean I talk to people almost daily about near death experiences now. So I hear a lot of there starts to become like I don't want to say patterns because everyone has kind of like their own unique experiences. But I do find that a lot of times when something is close to death, when someone is very close, could be that the process is beginning. That's sometimes when they're out of their body. They either kind of float out or they're kind of witnessing the moment. And then usually when the actual event happens, if there's like you said, you just mentioned it perfect. There's this flatline moment or there's something that really goes wrong. They kind of get disinterested in their body or something, a lot of them, and they'll go, I don't really want to stick around with this right now. I want to go
Mhm.
do this other thing. And then they go off into the next thing. Now, I don't know if that's what happened with you, but you, the way way you've described it is exactly what I've heard many times. Were you feeling, before you tell us what happened next, were you getting any feelings at that time? Like, was there any emotional connection or anything to what was happening, or were you just kind of
There's no
watching?
motion. Yeah, there's no
No
motion.
emotion.
I was just I didn't have any motion. I didn't have any I was just witnessing. That's the best I could say about it, that I was just witnessing, watching. I remember the surgeon, he had swore and so forth. Um, he's like, oh shit, this and that. And then they started scrambling real quick. But yeah, I didn't have no feeling towards it, whatever they were doing. I was just watching.
So no fear,
Yeah,
no
no,
sadness,
no,
no, just kind of like,
nothing.
oh, this is interesting. Just kind of
Yeah, more
watching what's
like that.
happening.
Yeah, yeah, more like that. Oh, okay. Oh, that's what they do. Okay. Oh, okay.
Wow.
That's me. That I think. Yeah, that's me right there. Yeah. Yeah. There's more like that. There
Hmm.
was no emotion. There was like, no, help me, save me. There's nothing.
So during the procedure, something went the wrong way, possibly. I don't know exactly what happened and how you flatlined at the moment, but there's a lot going on there, right? There's a lot around that. So The moment that that happened, when you said you went somewhere else, did you go through a tunnel? Were you transported? Like, what was the next event that happened?
So then I go ahead and then I land in this the brick. If you ever seen The Wizard of Oz, which you probably have,
Hmm.
so the golden bricks and so forth. So it was almost like that. So it was a wide golden brick, and then the trees were going up and then hovered across, almost like a tunnel and so forth. And so I get there and I just look around real quick, and then I noticed I felt good. And then I started running down the tunnel. Then I started doing flips and this and that,
Wow.
so I could see what I could do. Like, let me see what I could do. Started doing all these things that I seen on the Olympics and so forth, as far as the runs and the flips. The things that the uh, Olympians do when they're on the floor doing the floor exercise, where they run, jump, and flip and stuff. So I started doing that. I was like, oh my god! They're like, hey, this is cool. Like, this is cool over here. And I'm like, wow, like, hey, I like this. I could do all the things that I've wanted to do, with my body, and so forth. But then I come up to this white light, and that's where I slow down and I start walking, and I'm steady going into it. And then I go through the white light, and boom, uh, I feel like I'm in a different kind of realm. Everything's perfect. I'm walking on grass. It seemed like all the grass was perfect. Like, if you seen like the putting grass, so all the grass is almost like putting grass that you see on the golf course. Yeah, I'm just walking, and there's people there, and everybody's smiling and hi, 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 this and that. And then I see a friend of mine. Um, we start talking, and he's smiling. And, hey, how do you like it? This and that. And I'm like, wow, like, hey, like, oh, what's going on here? And then we're just talking, and he's just smiling and laughing, and I'm laughing along with him, like, wow, hey, I like it. It's real nice here, man. And he's like, yeah, right. Like, yeah, it's real nice. And then boom, I see my grandmother, and then we start talking. And my grandmother, she's we're just walking and talking, and I'm pointing things out. She's telling me about things on that side, um, and then I just keep on doing that, and then I come up to a bench, and so I sit down on a bench with a pond. And then I get up, and then I just start walking around by myself, and I go to a cliff, and then I start going towards the edge of the cliff. And as I go towards the edge of the cliff, then clouds start appearing uh, that I can walk on. So then I start walking on the clouds, and so forth, and so forth. And then I'm going higher and higher, and then I'm feeling how I felt when I was going through the tunnel. So then I started jumping on the clouds and jumping, jumping. Then I stop on the cloud, um, and then I look around, and then I felt this presence up in the sky. Uh, Now it wasn't a person, but the presence was so big that, like, you could just look to your left and right if you're in the sky, and that's how big it was. And then I started getting messages, like, speaking to me in every language you could think of, and I understood everything that I was receiving. And then I felt this big feeling of love over me, and this man, what do they call it? Um, I was just overwhelmed with this loving kind of feeling, and I did ask a couple questions, and I did get some answers, and then I went ahead, and then I came back down, and I just felt so perfect when I was coming back down. Um, and I'm thinking like, wow, is this real? Like, wow, is this real? And then I go back, I talk to my grandmother and you know some other people, and so forth. Um, and then at the end, she tells me, "Hey, do you want to stay?" And then I look at her like I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, it took me a while to just give her an answer. And I was like, you know what? I want to, but I got some stuff I got to do. Some some real big stuff that I want to do first. Then I'll come back. And then she looked at me and put her hand on me. She says, "Oh, I know you will." That we all do. And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right. You got to do it anyway." And then I was like, "Yeah, yeah." I don't know what else they're gonna. Yeah, of course we're all gonna. It's almost like saying we're all gonna die. So we're all gonna go back to that side, to the
Mhm.
other side. And then I left. And so when I came back, I was in the post operating room, and I can remember laying down, and my eyes were starting to open, and I'm still thinking about what I just seen, what I
Yeah.
just witnessed. But to the right of me, the nurse had gotten up, the post operation nurse. I forgot her name, but she got up. She came to me. And she started, she just put her hand lightly, like on my shoulder, by my chest. She said, "Oh, hey, Miss Roman, you okay? You okay?" I'm just like, I'm looking at her like, "Yeah, I think, yeah." She's like, "Oh man." She's like, "Well," she says, "Man, I'm so glad you're okay." She says, "We almost lost you." She says, "But Doc brought you back, and the team, and they brought you back." I was like, "What do you mean brought you back?" "Yeah, we had a little scare. We almost lost you, this and that." And boom, my eyes popped open. My heartbeat started going real fast, even though I was like easily under the meds and still coming out of, but there's pain meds and so forth that I found out. And I'm like, I'm looking at her. She's like, "Oh, wait." She said, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" Oh my gosh. I was like, that was real. She's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And she's like, "But you gotta relax. You gotta relax. Like we can't have this monitor going up." She's like, what happened? Like what did I say? This and that. And I was like, that was real. And then I told her everything that I told you. I
Right.
said, "I even heard Doc say this. And then that one said this. And she said this, all words of profanity and this and that." I said, "But it's okay. I'm just telling you what happened, this and that."
Yeah.
I says, and then I did this and I went here. I gave her a lot more detail because, I had a lot more time. But I mean, just the fact that I was able to, start talking after being so heavily drugged up from a procedure right away, but
Mhm.
everything just like, my mind and everything it just like, it's almost uh, getting scared, or like maybe seeing something and you're coming out of your body and so forth, like, oh my god, like that. But I went from being like drugged up to like when she said the what. Yeah. And then I just told her about it and so forth, and she's like, "Oh my god." She's like, "You know what?" She's like, "I've been here for 20 something years, almost, yeah, something like that, 20 something years." And she's like, "I've heard of this." She's like, "I've heard of this. I've never had one of the patients uh, tell me about it or go through this, but other coworkers, they have, because it's a pretty big hospital,
Mhm.
downtown Northwestern Chicago." She says, "Yeah, you're my first." She's like, "Wow." She's like, "Wow." Like, okay. She's like, "Before I ask any questions, let me just tell you, you're gonna pump this thing right here. This is called morphine. You're gonna pump this. You're gonna push this thing every She says it'll work every 20 minutes. You can do it up to 15 minutes, something like that. And she's like, don't touch this below your stomach. She says, they never sewed it up. So, your stomach is open. It's literally open from your belly button to your pelvis. And there's just a bandage on top of it, but there's nothing in the middle. Then it gets sewn up because they want, the stuff to keep coming out and this and that. So just don't touch that. And,
Wow.
you know, just be wary of that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. And then so she's like, hey, listen. So she had some questions. She's like, I'm gonna give you a minute, but I'll be right back. And I was just still like, I'm just like in a daze. I know the meds were putting me in a daze still, but the other part of my body was, well, I'll say like the normal side of my body was still like, wow, like, wow, that was real. Like, wow, like,
Mm.
wow. I just kept on saying that, like, oh my God, like, I mean, I could picture it right now, like as if I'm there right now, like if I was there, the moment and everything, and seeing the color of the room and what was that? What was that? There's something on the floor and so forth. And then and she comes back and she's like, "Hey, how are you feeling now?" And I was like, I'm still in disbelief." She said, "Okay, so what happened? This and that." And then I started to tell her, and she's like, "Hey, can I come up to your room later?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I just have some more questions about this." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, "Yeah, but I'm not gonna come up there to be to be your nurse or anything like that. She says, I'll be coming, like a visitor and so forth." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, no problem." She's like, "Yeah, I just got so many questions. I just got so many questions that that I want to know. That I want to know." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, yeah, no problem, no problem." Sure enough, she did come up there um,
Mm.
uh, later on and so forth, and yeah, I just started telling her. I just started telling her with more details, and yeah, that was it.
Wow. And
Yeah,
it's incredible. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing the whole thing as much. And again, yeah, you're compressing the experience in, an hour conversation, which is difficult because a lot went on. But you have to wonder if she was meant to get that message too, right? I think everything kind of is set, right? So
yeah,
she was clearly seeking questions herself, and you were there to support that. That's probably why, yes, some nurses are told things, but it's not like every person going under comes back with these stories and talks about it. Some people keep it in, other people, it could be just divine timing of the person that's helping. That particular nurse needed some reassurance herself because she came to you as a visitor, not as her nurse after
yeah,
to kind of get some of those questions answered too. And this is why I want to say, and this is why, and I don't know what other work you've done or what you're doing yet, but this is why a lot of the people I talk to have books, and then sometimes the comments will come through and say, "Oh, of course they wrote a book." And it's like, yeah, they're writing a book to share their knowledge. That's how we do it.
yeah,
We either do it on podcasts, books, blogs, like whatever it is. You have to somehow get that out there, right? So, I mean, the amount of information you would have come up with there. I have a few questions myself.
yeah,
I was gonna first ask because you mentioned your grandmother was in that experience, right? When you were in
yeah,
the other realm. You mentioned you saw a friend there. Had that friend passed?
yeah. He did pass. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
He
So
did
that
pass.
first.
He had
Mhm.
gotten shot. Um, at the time, I wasn't living close to the area. Uh, he was an older friend. He wasn't like a current friend when he passed away. But he was a grammar school friend. Um, so of course, this happened when I was around. I think I was 30 when that happened, somewhere around there. Um, so yeah, he had gotten shot from where I live now. Um, Probably like about 3 minutes away. Um, it was a I don't know if it was a gang member or if it was a jealous ex-boyfriend because he was with his girlfriend and they were at a store and it was something like that. That he got shot. I don't know if it was jealousy or something like that, because he was, because of his girlfriend at the time, his ex-boyfriend or something like that. But yeah, that had happened right on the corner, and yeah, yeah,
Oh,
that was it. Yep.
well, that's sad. So he was quite young when he passed. Was he young when you saw him? Like, what was his presence like?
Um, he was, yeah, he was. He looked young. He looked like he was like in his mid 20s. Yeah, he
Right.
looked like he was like in his mid 20s. Yeah, but he looked clear. He looked glowing, and you know,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But he always had that same laugh and that same smile. Like, yeah,
Yeah. So I can tell when you're talking about the experience, you have moments where I can see it in you that you're almost re-experiencing it. Like it
yeah,
seems,
I am.
it
I
seems
am.
like the memory of that. I always try to ask at near-death experiencers to compare it to a dream, and they will usually say it's more real than a dream. There's some kind of different feeling towards it because the
Yeah,
feeling
yes,
comes
it
back
is.
different. Do you feel the same way? Like from an
Yes,
authenticity place, did it
yes, for
did it
sure.
feel as real as this? As
Yeah,
you and I?
yes, yep, yep, yep. It's more, that's probably the perfect way to put it. It's more realer. It's more real than a dream. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, because you could always, you're always gonna go back there. You're always gonna go back there into
hmm.
that place.
Wow. Wow. And when you were talking with your grandmother, now, I mean, some of the questions that you probably, or the information you got when you were on the other side, um, I don't know if you've explained it all in some way. Some people, like I said, eventually write a book. Some people do different things to kind of explain the things that come back to them. And some things come back to them over time in their own life. Um, was there anything that convinced you that what was happening was real? Like when you were having the discussion with your grandmother, like was there ever a moment where you're like, wow, this is actually happening? Because when you came here, the reason I'm asking this is when you came here and you were coming to in this body and you were told that you died, that information jolted you into almost like a shock because you
Yeah, it was a
realized
shock.
that in from this perspective, wow, that was real. I guess what I'm trying to find out is when you were on the other side, did it ever occur to you like, oh wow, this is real? Like, was there ever something that was, did your grandmother seem authentically the same person? Like, could you tell this was a real, authentic experience or more like a dream? Like in the sense of like who she was.
Um, well, after I had watched them do uh perform the procedure and before I left, you know, I was like, well, this is real. That's just a very calm way of seeing it and how I said it as I was watching them do what they were doing. I was just like, oh, this is real. And then I went to the other side, and then I seen people, and I said, oh wow, almost like the movies. This is real. Like I've never had a dream like this.
Right.
And then I'm walking through, and then I talked, and then I seen those people, and I was like, I've never had a conversation like this. Like, wow, and they're acknowledging it. How do you like it over here? How do you like it over here? How do you like it? Wow, it's perfect. Like, wow, there's everything's just perfect. Like, that's all I could say.
Yeah.
And yeah, I knew it was real. I knew it was real at the time while I'm speaking, talking, observing, walking through, and so forth. And yeah, I was in awe, of how beautiful everything looked and felt, and how I felt, and so forth. But yeah, I said, okay, this is wow, this is the real thing.
Hmm.
Yeah,
When you made that decision to come back, so your grandmother's asking you, are you going to stay? Do you want to stay?
yeah.
Which is actually nice. She was probably excited to see you. It was probably kind of like this, okay, but what are you going to do? When you came to the conclusion that you're going to come back, Do you remember weighing on anything? Like, did you see visuals of your life? Like, how did you know that you were still Xavier? Because a lot of people on the other side, they know they're them. But, of course, when you were born, you were given the name Xavier, right? When I was born, I was given the name Joseph or Joe.
Mm.
So that's just our name. It's not our identity of truly what we are,
Right.
who we are.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'm wondering how you came to the conclusion of going back or what happened in that moment. Is there anything deeper you can explain?
Um, yeah, I mean, I really wanted to stay. That was the whole thing about that I really wanted to stay. But then the other thing was like, I got some things I wanted to do. It wasn't even so much as if I do stay, was someone gonna be sad? Was someone gonna, who needs me, not have me or something like that, or won't have access to me. It wasn't even that. It was just okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna go back because I have these things that I could see that I want to do, and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. It was more of that. There was no like sadness, like if I stay, they're gonna be sad. No one's gonna be able to take care of this and that. That didn't even pop in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing it like that because there are people who have just say recently had kids or whatever, and they're like, no, I need to like they can visually see the impact and the influence it would have on their loss. They can see, and but at the same time they want to do things. With yours, it was really specifically like my life purpose has more to do. Like like the things, maybe your influence in the world. You wanted to do more, right? That's what it sounds like from what you're explaining. So you could actually not visually see it, but like feel it and know that those are things that you could be doing and you wanted to go back.
Right.
And the
Right.
moment you decided on that, it was just in a moment, or because it
Yeah. I
sounds
mean,
like
I
that.
did say bye. I did say goodbye. Gave my grandmother a hug and kiss and so forth, and then boom. You know, and I can remember people looking at me like they're standing on the grass. Like I was about to do something. Like, oh wow, he's gonna. But without it being said, just to like he's gonna do that. Like, wow, that without saying it, it looked like their looks are like he's gonna do it. He's gonna go back there. Like
Right. Right.
I wouldn't do that. Like it
Right.
was almost like, wow, yeah, that's great.
Wow. I
Yeah,
can actually visualize that and feel that. When you explain
yeah,
that, I can see that if you're on the other side and you're actually becoming more of who you are, right? Because if that
yes,
is where we go, that's where we're from, which means
yeah.
that's our
You're back
true
home.
self.
Hmm.
So to temporarily go back home and then to see them, it would almost be like the way I would put it in perspective for people listening here would be like someone who does maybe shark diving or something, and you dive into this water and this shark almost destroys you, right? Because of the work you're
Yeah,
doing. And then you get pulled back out and they say, "Wow, that was a close one." Like you almost got eaten by that shark and you're like, "You know what? I'm gonna go back in there because I want to make sure that this thing is done that I have to do." And everyone's like, "Okay, well, good luck to you. I mean, I can't believe you're going back to do that again." That's the
yeah,
feeling I get when you explain it
yeah.
that way.
Hmm. Yeah,
Wow,
yep, like that. Yeah.
that's fascinating. So did it? Okay, when you came back, and obviously, I mean, you're here now, so obviously things got better, and the wound had to heal, and they had to sew you back up and get all that stuff out of you and all that what was going on, which is incredible. Also, that you were sitting there with an open wound like that just to heal. But when you came back, did it take a while for you to like realign yourself with the reality here, or were you immediately just back here and back to the craziness of the world?
No, it still took me a while. It took me a while. I know that for sure because um, the reality of some of the thoughts that I used to have, um, it just there was things that if I thought about them at the moment while I was like healing in the hospital and recovering and so forth, there's more things that I could take back to when I was like little, 5, and like, yep, that's not right. Oh, yeah, now I know that's not right. Oh, yeah, now I know that's not right. And I'm thinking things in my head like, no, now I know that's not right. Wow. Okay. Like, okay, yeah, that's good. That's right. Yeah, that's not right. Um, for instance, and I'm not knocking anything or anyone, religion and so forth. The lady did come up to me. She says, "Hey, tell me." She seemed, just from talking to her, she seemed very religious. Tell me uh, about the Bible. I says, I says, okay, I can do that. I says, what do you want? She says, what is your question? And she's like, um, what do you think? And I was like, well, it doesn't really matter what I think because that's your life, and whatever you interpret of it and however you take it, that's how you're gonna live. Like, so it's really that's each individual. Like, no matter whatever religion you do, man, like, hey, do good, help others, be good to good people, and you know, that's it. So, and I said, well, what do you want to know? She's like, well, what do you think? I was like, well, are you asking me what I think or what did I see? And she's like, both. And I was like, okay, I'll tell you real quick what just comes up to mind. I says, that's meant for that time. That's not meant for this time. I says, and I see, and it says, and I know that. I says, that's what I picked up from over there. I said, so if you want to be, stress free, and do good and so forth, you could do that. And I said, so, you don't need to feel all this, this low levelness and this weight on you because you feel like, oh, I thought this, I thought these negative thoughts, you get punished, and this and that. And I was like, yeah, there's no punishment. I says, but what there is that you've got to deal with what you've done and what you do intentionally wrong and so forth. So we always make mistakes, but now when you're doing something intentionally, I said, that's something that you're gonna have to work through, or you're gonna have to experience yourself. So then you could know, how that is and how wrong that was, and so then you could get that taste and so forth. I said, so yeah, that's what I picked up on that from that, Um, that's the best I could tell you. So I'm not knocking it, not downing it. I said, but that's what I pick up from over there, from being on that side. I said, because that part did come up real quick, when I was over there, because I was like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? I said, I found myself asking questions and so forth, in my mind and getting the answers right in my mind while I was right there. While I was walking around, I said, I found myself, I went through that question too on that side. And she's like, you know what? She's like, I, that's not going to stop me from anything. But man, she said, that does take a lot off my shoulders, because I'm a Christian and blah, 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 blah. And I said, hey, listen, right from wrong. That's all. I said, right from wrong. I said, there's no reason to feel that guilty, um, feel at a low level whenever you just because you're thinking something and so forth. There's no reason. I think that's all I could tell you is that was meant for that time, and you know, do what you want with the information, so forth.
Hmm.
That was it.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I'm really happy you shared that because I get that kind of explanation often about religions and things like that. And the conclusion I've seen so far, and I'm just saying what I've kind of picked up on is that, whether it's the Bible, religious teachings and things like that, is there is a lot of good in it.
Yeah,
There's teachings in it. There's things that we can take, and it's up to us whether we want to take that. But if it's causing distress on your life, if there's things in it that are feeling off from our current reality, then you do have to question, well, what has changed? I mean, a lot has changed in 2000 years or whatever, however many years these are going on. Like there's a lot that changes. We're always changing. And I think we're always learning and adapting. I mean, just the sheer amount of people that I talk to who've had these experiences who are now willing to share it. Just people who've had spiritual transformative experiences that are willing to share it. Again, 100 years ago, this would have been pretty frowned upon to be having these conversations. You know what I
Oh
mean? Like
yeah,
that's only 100 years, 50
yeah.
years. So it's, we have to really look at it from that perspective of how quickly we're now adjusting. I don't know why I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to ask it in this way just because it feels right with you. I never asked anyone in this way, and if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. But from 0 to 100, 0% to 100%, right? How convinced are you that what you experienced was real and that there is an afterlife?
100.
So no, so you're not even at 99 or 98. You're at 100%.
Yeah, 100 plus.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. We go to
Wow.
101. Yeah,
And just that answer alone is so important for people who are seeking because there's a lot of people who are lost because they don't know their own truths, and we can get caught up in that. And just hearing somebody like you say that, I mean, that's your experience, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
saying a lot. 100% surety from your feeling
yeah.
that you experienced a place that was different from here, and it felt more real, you said, than you and I having this conversation right now. In fact, could this almost be dreamlike from that side a little bit? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, this could be dreamlike. Like if someone's filming us,
Hmm.
until we get, back home,
Right.
because once you're there, you just feel like, ah, man, like, oh my God, I'm so glad to be back. You get that kind of feeling without saying it. You feel like, like as if you came from vacation.
Hmm.
You've been gone 2 weeks, and then you come back home, and then you put your bags down. And you're like, oh my God, my TV, my sofa, my chair.
Right,
Like,
right.
oh man, I still got these things, these cold wraps in the fridge, and I still got a drink right here. Oh man, like, ooh, and I'm just glad to be back, at home and so forth. So you get the same
Wow.
feeling. I had the same feeling when I was there. Like, oh man, this feels normal for some reason. Like this feels good for some reason. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm back in my own yard, and so forth. Yeah.
So it felt like you were back to where you were supposed to be and
Yeah.
that you were on almost like a vacation or on an experience somewhere else
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
came back. You
Yes.
came back from it. Oh, wow. Just from my own personal experience, you don't know much about me likely, but sometimes I sit on my show, but in my late teens and adolescence, that's when I started getting severe anxiety around the idea of death and what it meant. And it really messed me up for a lot of years. Probably influenced with being around some of the wrong people and seeing some things and then kind of just rebelling in my teenage years. And then, I started really investigating near-death experiences. And that here I am now, all these years later, like talking to people who've had them. So it's fascinating going from that to hearing someone like you say, "Oh, I'm 100% surety that we go back somewhere." So I appreciate you, and I appreciate you saying that. Do you just kind of summarizing everything here and ending the conversation a little bit, but I wanted to know, do you do anything with the information you have? Like, do you talk to anyone? Do you have books? Some people do this stuff. Other people are just living their daily lives and then they have this kind of thing, and that's their
Um,
way of doing it.
what I do, yeah, what I do is do the healing part. That I start off with, telling you when I was little. So that continued to go on. Now I just do it like, publicly. I do it online. I meet with people online, and they have something going on. Then I just say okay, and then as long as I could see a person's eyes, I could go ahead and connect. And I just listen to them, what's going on. They got pains here, they got pain there, they got this going on, this going on. I also go ahead and I do like hospital visits, like with if it's somebody who's like in a serious condition, whether it be a ER or ICU. Um, I do that. But most of the stuff I do is just online, just like as if me and you were speaking. You
Wow.
told me something's wrong. So yeah,
Do you have like a website or contact information
yeah,
people
yeah,
can
yeah,
reach?
yeah. It's under my name. It's XavierRoman.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can see some of the videos are up there, and then our social media is on the bottom of the page. If you want to click on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's
Yeah,
great. I
but
appreciate
no
that. Yeah.
books, no books or nothing. I have thought about it the last couple of years doing that. Last about 3 years of doing that, but I just didn't get around to it. But yeah, I'm leaning towards that way.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards that way. Yeah,
Well, it's interesting because all the information you gave today, I'm like, these are snippets and I can see that there's more detail within it. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like I could grab each part and kind of dig in further with you. We
yeah,
could have a 6 hour conversation around it,
yeah.
which
It
I'd
definitely
love.
would. Yeah.
The YouTube algorithm might think that's a little much, you know,
Yeah.
but but I really appreciate the conversation. And yeah, I mean, if I'm sure if you ever do release any books or any information, it'll probably be on your website, I'm assuming, because that'd be your home website. And
Uh-huh.
so anybody listening in, if you found Xavier's story fascinating, like I have, make sure you reach out. I end each episode the same way, and I always ask everybody. Um, this always I always have a tough time asking it in a certain way, but I'll just say it like this. You know, if the other side is the way it is, what are we doing here? What is this? What's the purpose of this thing we're in? What are we doing?
Experience.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Experience and go through it and learn. Experience and learn.
Wow, and perhaps I love that, and perhaps we bring that back with us. I don't know how memory works, but clearly there was something, even though you were experiencing the afterlife and you had all these, you know, your grandmother, your friend, and you had all these beautiful people that were around you that you probably may have known or you were going to see. At one moment, you're like, no, I'm still going to go back and do this other stuff. So there's still some kind of connection to here. So there's
Yeah,
something must be there. You just weren't focusing on it, it almost seems, until you needed
yeah,
to focus on it, right? You were too busy doing backflips in the clouds.
yeah,
So,
yeah. You're right.
right?
Yeah. It did feel
Yeah.
good though.
So experience. That's our main
Yeah,
reasoning to come in.
learning. Yeah, learning and experience. Yeah,
Wow. Wow.
yeah. And
Well,
I think and I got from that the harder it is, the more experience you want to gain. Even though you're like, look, I do not want to go through that hellhole, that I went through, this and that, this, that, but the other side of your body, the other side of your soul, like, no, we want to experience that. Like, you crazy? Are
yeah.
you sick? Or something like
Right,
that.
right.
It's like, yeah, you want to experience it. It's bad or horrific or tough as that was, yeah, those are just the stronger people.
Wow. That's amazing. And I think that is one of the hardest things for people to understand. And it's a hard, you know, that saying, it's a hard pill to swallow. It's a hard thing to understand why we would put ourselves through these things. But I think it's good for us to step back and have awareness around it, and that could help us heal through it. And if you don't want the experience, pray that you don't and work through it and try to see, you know, because maybe we have a little more control than we think. You know what I mean? There's a lot that comes up in a lot of these conversations.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with the Soul Inspired family. I always turn to the Soul Inspired and say, you know, please continue to like, share, and subscribe. If you think this story could help somebody, please share it with them, even privately. This is why we're bringing these experiences out so people can kind of get a deeper understanding of who we are at our core. So, but thank you so much, Xavier, for coming on the
Thank
Soul
you for having
Inspired.
me. I appreciate it.
So vision. So